guys, it's me, Samantha again, and I'm going to do this challenge, try not to scream. This might scare you to death, Lily.
What?
This will scare you.
No, it won't.
Okay. She's not going to do You gotta keep my phone charging, okay?
It is charging.
Okay. Stop. Let go, Jasmine. Stop.
I hate
What?
this place.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, let's start this again.
Well, in this suit, I hate that the suit still tries to speak. And most of all, I hate that people don't come here
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. My dad.
anymore. You see, there was a fire, and as Bear's Fright was shut down indefinitely. But I came back
No, you can't.
like always, and I am forever cursed to walk through these ruins. I can never leave, but I can never die. Forever wandering these empty halls, hoping that someone will come here, so I can kill again.
Yeah.
So Mr. Charles, you have never worked a single day in your life.
It's a robot that kills people, bro.
You're the one who's and no Nicholas.
A drink? Ask Leslie.
Father,
You don't need
it's
a
me,
drink.
Michael.
Not for kicking your friend.
You don't need to be a drink since y'all got kicked out of daycare. I think I should whoop you.
Come drink this one. This one's like Here, share this.
Quit, Sally. I mean,
It
Sammy.
was joyous. You know.
Happy up.
Really?
Okay, I'm back. Let's do this.
Did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be. They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you. And I found her. I put her back together, just like you asked me to. She's free now. But something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not. I've been living.
The bath that you gave her was in the net. No, I used that pink one time. No, Mama, you used the net one where she like set in it. You have not been able to find that pink one. Because I've had the pink one since before.
Let's try this one.
It was approaching the end of summer, and my friends and I wanted to do some cool, mischievous things before going back to school. So, we had the genius idea one night to sneak into a nearby community pool. It was actually only a couple blocks away.
Yeah.
It's right smack in the middle of a residential area, so instead of sitting on a main road or something, it actually just sat around a bunch of houses on a quiet road. During a hot day, the little parking lot would be full and the spot would be bustling. But at 1 in the morning, the place was of course dead. There's obviously a big fence surrounding the whole front entrance, as well as a cage that gets closed up when the place closes. So our best way was to get in through the side. We snuck into the backyard of a neighboring house and hopped the fence over to the pool. It was as easy as that. The 4 of us took off our shirts and jumped into the pool, which in retrospect wasn't smart, since any of the neighbors could have heard the splashes and just called the police. But we were dumb high schoolers. It was very, very dark within that whole enclosing. This pool had no lights, which is why it closed at sunset. James, Courtney, and Alyssa were on the other side of the pool, as I was just kind of doing my own thing at first, swimming around and getting my face wet. I saw Alyssa get out of the pool shortly after and run away. I swam over to see what was going on. She was just going to the water fountain, though. The 3 of us just bopped around in the water for a bit, and eventually we heard Alyssa jump back into the pool from the other side. It was too dark to see much more than her black hair covering her face. But just then we heard Alyssa playfully call something to us as she was walking back to the pool. The 3 of us in the pool looked at each other. I know they were doing the same thing as me, counting heads. There were 3 of us on this side of the pool, and here came Alyssa walking over to our side. So who was that on the other side? Alyssa got in, but the 3 of us were distracted, looking at the head bopping around the water across the pool. James said across the pool, "Who is that?" Not even 2 seconds later, the head went underwater and disappeared from view. We took this time to whisper to each other, mostly things like, what should we do? What if that's security? And should we run? Suddenly I felt something grab my leg with force and tried pulling me down into the water. I kicked, splashed, and yelled for help. James came over to pull me out of the pool, while the girls were already running for it, screaming. It wasn't until I got to the stairs of the pool that the grip on my leg was released and I was free. We hopped the same fence we climbed over to get in and ran all the way back to Alyssa's house. I was convinced that whoever that was a security guard. That is, until they literally tried to pull me under the water. We don't know what to think. There are a few possibilities. Maybe it was just another kid messing with us, maybe it was a security guard who went way too far, or most likely, it was a dangerous person who had ill intent.
Okay, that was really scary.
Alright.
Let's try this. Let's see.
Hey, I'm Sapphire. Want to hear something scary?
Yep.
One night when I was 16, I spent the night at a friend's house. Neither of us had tried Bloody Mary before, and we decided that tonight was the night that we would. If you've somehow managed to miss that part of childhood, Bloody Mary is the urban legend that claims if you stand in front of a mirror in the dark, spin around and chant Bloody Mary 3 times, she will appear in the mirror and claw your face. So, my friend and I went into the bathroom, turned off the lights, lit some candles, and spun around, chanting, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary. We opened our eyes, and there, in the mirror, was a head so covered in blood that it was just completely red. We screamed and ran out of the bathroom and never went back in the rest of the night. When it was time for bed, my friend's father came in to tell us goodnight. "Hey girls," he said, "are any of you on your period by any chance?" No. Why do you ask? Oh, okay, well, there's blood on the bathroom floor, so I'd like you to clean it up when you get a chance, please. The Philippines is full of incredible mythology and fantastic creatures. My grandpa has always been a believer of these myths. That's because he's experienced them. This is what he told me. I lived in a rural town in the Visayan Islands of the Philippines. I was in my mid-20s and working late one night. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning when I began to walk my way to the bus station, my way lit only by the full moon. I've walked this path many times. I passed by this house that had a dog in the yard that would always bark at me when I passed. But tonight, it just stared and just watched as I walked by. And that's when I heard it, a very strange sound in the distance. I had heard of the tikwi, sometimes known as a wak-wak or aswang. It separates from the lower half of its body to fly around at night, searching for any living soul, to rip out their hearts with their taloned feet and feast. And when you hear its call, you know it's hungry. So I continued walking towards the bus station, and I could still faintly hear the sound. And I saw that there was a security booth with a guard inside. I didn't want to wait at the station alone, so I slipped inside the booth and waited with the guard. I still wasn't sure if I was imagining the sound, but from the look on the guard's face, I'm pretty sure he heard it too. So we both just sat there, motionless. Finally, the bus arrived, and I ran out of the booth and onto the bus and rode all the way home, the sounds of the tikwi growing fainter and fainter. The next day, I told my coworkers what had happened, and that's when one of them told me, tikwis are master tricksters. The further away they sound, the closer they are. This is a story that was passed around a lot when I was younger, and it still gives me chills to this day. Let me tell you about the man who was a little too curious. I was driving home from a business trip and decided to stay the night in a motel that I found on the roadside. After checking in, I walked down the hall to my room, but on my way I noticed a door that was all boarded up and covered in police tape. As soon as I passed it, I could have sworn I heard someone singing from inside the room. There was one spot of the door that was still uncovered, a giant keyhole, big enough to see through to the inside. So I knelt down and peeked inside the hole. All I saw was this pale little girl singing to herself. It was so strange. Why was she there by herself? Anyways, I stood up and went to my room and went to sleep. The next morning, on my way to check out, I passed the door again. I still couldn't believe what I saw the night before, so I decided to take another peek. So I knelt down and took another look inside. But this time, all I could see was red. Nothing but red. Did she notice me looking last night and cover the hole up with something? It was all very strange. I went to the concierge to check out, and I decided to ask her, "So, what's up with that room? The one that's all boarded up?" "Well," she said, "a while ago, a family checked in. A mother, a father, and their young girl. But that poor girl never checked out. Her parents murdered her in that room. Oh, I'll never forget them. They had incredibly pale skin and deep blood-red eyes." So this is a story that my aunt told me happened to her when she was in her mid-20s. She was living in the Philippines at the time, and she had a niece who was a freshman in high school. So one day, the high school called her and said, "You need to get over here right now. Your niece is acting really weird." And my aunt had no idea what they were talking about. And so when she got to the school, her niece was sitting on a chair and she looked really out of it. And if anyone tried to tell...
I don't really want to go outside right now.
So once you get fueled up, let's get squared away on yesterday's deliveries before the customer stampede.
Shopping season's just getting started.
Jojo.
2 weeks away. The season is half over.
Touch her, she would violently hit their hand away and yell at them in a cold, deep voice that clearly wasn't her.
On the selling side, buying wise,